Now, admittedly, this upcoming draft class isn't the most exciting. We gotta be a little careful. Some guys who are looking phenomenal on paper might not do so well at the NFL level.
Thibodeaux publicly compared himself. He said, "I'm the next Jadeveon Clowney." He chose Oregon because of the Nike brand. He also just changed his agency. There's a lot of stuff with
How would you like to change your answer?
Some of the top players from the 2022 NFL draft class may end up being the guys who were overlooked in the early rounds. On the flip side, some of the earliest picks of this draft could turn out to be some of the biggest disappointments. So here are 5 potential draft busts and 5 potential steals from the 2022 NFL draft. Potential bust: Kayvon Thibodeaux. There was a time where Thibodeaux was viewed as the consensus #1 pick in this draft.
Going #1 overall, I think is hands down the best player in this draft, and it was the best player coming out of high school, is Kayvon Thibodeaux.
But the times have changed, and some people don't even think he'll be a top 5 or top 10 pick at this point. The concerns with Thibodeaux start with his work ethic and effort. Some teams are reportedly worried that he doesn't put in a full 100% effort on each play, and Thibodeaux had to address this narrative at the NFL Combine. Though he is a dynamic pass rusher and a solid run stopper, Thibodeaux just isn't as consistent, polished, or explosive compared to other top pass rushers like Chase Young and Nick Bosa when they were coming out of college. Thibodeaux could silence the doubters and grow into a consistent double-digit sack guy, or he could be a total flop. Or maybe something in between. He's one of the biggest question marks in recent NFL draft history, to say the least. It'll be tempting for teams with an early pick to take a chance on him. If he falls outside of the top 10, that could end up being a great value. But if he goes inside the top 5 and flops, well, don't say we didn't warn you. Potential steal: Sam Howell. Remember the days when people thought Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler would duke it out for the first QB taken in the 2022 draft? Some even wondered if either guy would go first overall. But both endured tough 2021 collegiate campaigns. Howell is likely to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick at this phase, and Rattler transferred over to South Carolina for the 2022 season. Howell has plummeted down the list of QB draft prospects this year, but Howell is still an enticing prospect. And if he finds the right home, the North Carolina product could very well grow into a quality NFL starter. Listed at 6'1", Howell is undersized by modern quarterback standards. There's also going to be concerns about his decision-making and habit of committing unnecessary high-risk throws. But the upside is hard to ignore. He's got good poise in the pocket and superb accuracy. Howell rushed for 828 yards and 11 touchdowns last season, so his dual-threat game should be appealing to several GMs. Howell would be ideal for a team that figures to move on from a veteran QB in the not-so-distant future. If Howell could learn behind a seasoned veteran for a year or two, it could set him up for a bright NFL future. Potential bust: Kenny Pickett. Pickett went from an afterthought to a guaranteed first-round pick in 2021. The Pittsburgh product had a phenomenal year, completing 67.2% of his passes for 42 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. Now, Pickett doesn't have the highest ceiling, but among all QBs in this class, he has the lowest bust potential. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean that the bust potential isn't still there. He's got good size for a modern NFL QB at 6'3" and 220 pounds. His hand size, however, has worried many NFL scouts and analysts. With more and more defensive players mastering the strip sack and peanut punch, any disadvantage gripping the ball can be exploited, especially in bad weather. As for Pickett's biggest issue, that comes down to simply decision-making. Far too often, he tries to make something out of nothing, as opposed to just taking a sack or simply throwing the football away. This is a common trait for young quarterbacks, and his skill set isn't as high as guys like Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, so he can't get away with his bad decisions quite as often. Between his small hands and his questionable decision-making, it's easy to envision Pickett struggling with turnovers at the NFL level. And in a league where so much emphasis is placed on ball security, that could be a big issue for the Pitt product's development. Potential steal: Christian Harris. If this draft class wasn't so deep with defensive talent, Harris could very well be a first-round pick. Instead, Harris will likely fall into the mid or late 2nd round. Whichever team lands him, however, will have an NFL-ready rookie phenom on their hands. The 6'2", 232-pounder wreaks havoc all over the field. He had 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a trio of pass defenses. Harris holds up well in coverage and has a knack for really lowering the boom on ball carriers. He's the type of tone setter that any defensive unit could really rally around. Teams looking to establish a feisty physical identity like the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Baltimore Ravens would be an ideal landing spot for him. Potential bust: TARIQ Stingley Jr. Now make no mistake, Stingley has all the tools to be a top corner in a very stacked draft class. But there are some concerns that just cannot be overlooked. Stingley's eye-popping 2019 season is a key reason why he's expected to be a high draft pick. That year, the LSU corner posted 6 interceptions and 15 passes defended. However, injuries limited Stingley to 10 games over the next 2 years. And even when he was on the field, Stingley wasn't exactly his 2019 self. Ultimately, health is the key factor here. As we've seen time and time again, injuries are a surefire way to derail what once looked like a promising NFL career. Potential steal: James Cook. This year's draft is lacking any potential first-round running backs. Chances are a running back won't be selected until late in the second round. Kenneth Walker of Michigan State, Breece Hall of Iowa State, and Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M are widely regarded as the top running backs in this class. So, that means Georgia star James Cook may have to wait until the third round or even later to hear his name called. Now, Cook isn't big for a running back, listed at 5'11" and 190 pounds, but he runs with plenty of power and finesse, averaging over 6 yards a carry in each of his 4 college seasons. Cook had 728 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns last season, playing an instrumental role in the Bulldogs' national championship season. Cook may not be a 3-down starter right off the bat, but he'd be worthy of a gamble for a team planning to add some juice to their backfield committee. Honestly, there are plenty of good fits for Cook. He has the strength and physicality to be a capable 1,000-yard rusher and a red zone threat. Now, maybe not right away, but if you place him in the right scheme, just watch him take off. Potential bust: Malik Willis. Multiple quarterbacks are going to be taken in the first round this year. It's more so because certain teams are just desperate at the position, however. There really isn't a can't-miss signal caller in this class, but nobody should be surprised if Liberty product Malik Willis is the first QB off the board. At this point, he could very easily go somewhere in the top 10. Now, the first concern is that Willis is pretty undersized for a QB. He's barely over 6 feet and weighs between 215 and 220 pounds. But it's not just Willis's size that could scare teams away. Yes, he's an explosive dual-threat QB who rushed for 1,822 yards and 27 TDs over his last 2 seasons of college. But there's always going to be questions about these rushing quarterbacks when they enter the NFL. Turnovers are another issue. Willis had 18 interceptions over the 2020 and 2021 seasons. The upside is there, no doubt, but can Willis adapt his game at the NFL level? He cannot overly rely on his mobility. He'll have to make better decisions with the football and work on his overall accuracy. Potential steal: TARIQ Woolen. As we previously noted, this is a very deep class for cornerbacks. Now, with that being said, so many teams are bound to overlook UTSA product TARIQ Woolen. He is just one of the many exciting defensive backs in this class. And the Roadrunners football program isn't as notable as powerhouses like Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia, which further increases Woolen's chances of being a great value pick. The 6'4", 205-pound Woolen didn't put up eye-popping numbers in college, just 2 interceptions in 4 seasons. But he was one of the top performers at the Combine, running the 40-yard dash in 4.26 seconds. Woolen has the ideal size and frame to hang in there against the opposition's top receivers. Just because he isn't from a big school and just because the cornerback pool is so deep, it doesn't mean he is not going to shine. Woolen will be a legitimate steal candidate for whichever team drafts him. This guy will be ready to make an impact immediately. Potential bust: Jordan Davis. Davis turned heads at the NFL Combine when he ran a 4.78 40-yard dash, which is ridiculously fast for a guy listed at 6'6" and 340 pounds. Davis's dominant showing at the Combine guarantees that he will be a first-round pick. The problem is that Davis is strictly a run stopper and really not much of a pass rusher. He's not the do-it-all beast like Aaron Donald or DeForest Buckner. The Georgia product had only 7 sacks over his 4 seasons in college football, and many expect him to be only a 2-down defensive lineman. So teams who value Davis will ultimately have to decide if he's worthy of such a high selection. Davis is an absolute freak of nature in the run-stopping game. But in today's NFL, where so much emphasis is placed on getting after that quarterback, is it really worth spending a first-round pick on a guy who averaged less than 2 sacks per season in college? Combine numbers aside, that's not the type of production that any NFL GM should be settling on in round 1. Potential steal: Christian Watson. Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Treylon Burks, Chris Olave, and Jameson Williams round out an incredibly deep 2022 wide receiver class. Another hot receiver prospect to keep an eye on, though, is North Dakota State product Christian Watson, another small school phenom. Watson possesses a giant 6'5", 208-pound frame, and he puts all of it to good use. He was one of the nation's elite deep threats, averaging over 18 yards per reception in each of his 4 NCAA seasons. Watson caught a career-best 7 touchdown passes last season. He could also be used for gadget and trick plays. He rushed for over 100 yards in each of his final 3 NCAA seasons. Now, we're not saying he's going to be the next Deebo Samuel, but in the right offense, Watson could be a megastar. But who are some other potential busts and steals of the 2022 NFL Draft? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.